Here to provide us with veterinary perspective on compartmentalization, please welcome Dr. Shaun Morris, veterinary surgeon from Octavocene. Welcome, Dr. Shaun.
Thank you, Mac.
Hi, Shaun. How are you?
I'm very well, and you, Dewald?
Well, thank you. Welcome, and please tell us who you are, what do you do, where you operate from, what's your claim to fame?
Dewald, I'm intimately involved in the feedlot industry on many more levels than what I ever thought when I qualified as a veterinarian. And hopefully on a daily basis we make improvements and we add a positive contribution to the feedlot industry in South Africa.
Shaun, yes. So we've been talking this morning to Dr. John Gruer, and later on we'll be speaking to Dr. Mpomaja from the government. And what John said to us is compartments is definitely a possibility in South Africa. He also mentioned that it needs to be a collaborative effect or collaborative interjection between government and industry. You being on the ground, is it possible to have compartments? And if so, what's the first three things that we need to desperately look at if we want to compartmentalize?
Yeah, I think that compartmentalization is definitely something that's achievable. I think it's going to take a lot of willpower. It's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take, as you said, collaboration with the government on every single level. And my own framework for something that would be possible, and I am working very closely with the government on a draft document at the moment, would be to identify the facilities where I believe it could actually be put in place. And I think the first thing that anybody that wants to become registered as a compartment would have to recognize is that they're going to have facilities where one can quarantine incoming cattle. Once they've been quarantined, I think then we would be able to put a process in place where we would have been able to identify or mitigate risk with respect to any of the diseases that would impact on our export markets. And from there, we could then take them into a feedlot situation under and with the inputs of the local provincial veterinary services. And from there, the abattoir too would have to be recognized as an export status facility. As they say in English, miracles take 3 days and the impossible takes 4 days. This can be done. And we as South Africa need to believe we can do it, and we will make it happen.
There are so many role players in the beef industry. And I would think, and I'm asking you, it's not only one portion of, or only one role player in this value chain that needs to adhere to this. Is it the whole value chain? Is it from a specific section? How would it work?
Devils, I think what we need to understand is we have a big gap in our beef industry, and that is animal identification. Okay? If we don't get that put in place, whether we want to or whether we don't, we're not going to even get off the ground. I think it's a very simple equation. In actual fact, it's very interesting that the Americans have a draft policy in front of Congress at the moment called the Animal Disease Traceability Program. Okay? President Trump, love him or hate him, has sent it back to Congress. He wants a proper system in place. And if our neighboring countries, being Namibia and Botswana, have been able to implement a system that gains them export access or access to markets that we're unable to attain, we can get it sorted out. We just need to find cooperation between everybody from the ground up to the penthouse suite.
What would be, I think, the biggest stumbling block on the ground with regards to this?
We need unity. We need to find a system that suits everybody. We need to be responsible. We need to make sure that we don't have vested interests in the program. We need to be doing what's good for the country, not for ourselves. I think there's more than enough evidence to show that when you do for yourself, the country battles.
Correct.
Now, Dewald, a quick one to you, Dr. Shaun. A bit earlier on, you mentioned quarantine. Now, what is the importance of having these cattle quarantined?
Mac, if you want to see somebody's eyes light up and their blood pressure drop, tell them you have foot and mouth disease. Okay, I was intimately involved in the outbreak on the 1st of November. In actual fact, I was on the farm where the outbreak took place. And if you realistically look at the incubation period of this virus, which in fact is innocuous, it doesn't kill the cattle, doesn't affect the meat, it just wipes out our international trade. Incubation periods are imperative, just like the COVID, where people have identified that somewhere between 2 and 10 days you may be infective. Foot and mouth has an incubation period of up to 14 days. So we need to take 2 incubation periods to ensure that we don't have that particular disease within the cattle. Having said that, I come back to the traceability system, and I think at the end of the day, if we don't have traceability, we are going to battle. You can't do this job properly unless you can identify what you're dealing with.
Shaun, we've previously heard from Dr. John Gruer that obviously there are examples of compartments currently in South Africa. The pork industry is one of them. What do you think about that?
Devalt, I think the pork industry are leaders, and unfortunately at this point in time, the beef industry are serious followers. The fact that they were able to implement and successfully manage their compartmentalization program has resulted in them opening up markets that they would never ever have had access to. And, you know, let's say a boer maak 'n plan. Okay, we need a plan.
Yes.
We need a workable plan, we need a practical plan, and we need to show our trading partners that we're serious. Okay, talk is cheap. It's the money that buys the cigars. And once we have a program in place, we need to sit down with all role players in the industry, thrash it out. Can this be achieved? Can that be achieved? Is this practical? Is it impractical? And I once again come back to the thing. We need to the traceability and the animal identification. We definitely, and that's where the pig guys are ahead of us. They have their hand on the pulse. Right now, I think our hand's looking for the pulse.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shaun Morris, and thank you for all the information that you shared with us today.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Shaun.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Devalt.